Chapter 3, Proteus. Fellow crewmates, how are you getting on with Ulysses so far? I think chapter 3 is Joyce is, you know, this is typical. This is classic Joyce, this chapter. And the reason I say that is because he's got a style like no other author that I've read, in the fact that he actually directly takes you inside somebody's head. And I've never read a book like that before. Not that you're observing what someone's thinking, you are the thoughts. So when you are reading what these words, this is actually what Stephen is thinking to himself, and this is Stephen's internal monologue as he walks down a beach in Dublin. So I'm assuming that he's left school, you know, he's got paid his wages and he's going to walk down the beach. And basically this whole chapter is his thoughts. And so, yeah, if you're confused, rightly so, you should be confused, because his thoughts wander about all the time. 1 minute he's thinking about this, the next minute he's thinking about that, just like what we do. And that's why I think Joyce is such a beautiful writer, because he seems to encapsulate the whole human experience. So yeah, that's Stephen. And I'm not going to go into it word for word, line by line. I'll do another really, really long video. Chris Rich has done a great video on YouTube, and there's also some Sparks notes that I'm going to post in the comments below, which will, if you're struggling with the storyline or not storyline, there is no storyline in chapter 3, Proteus. There is no storyline. That's what you've got to get your head around in Ulysses. This is 24 hours in the day of 2 people, and this chapter isn't moving the plot. There is no plot, you know. Well, there is a slight one when you get to the end of it, but you know, this is just somebody walking down the beach. Don't read it into it any more than that. But what is interesting is we get inside somebody's head. And the things that well, first off, before I go any further, one thing that really confused me is some of the words when I first read Ulysses. Now, one of them was ash plant, right? I had no fucking idea what an ash plant was at all. And I just kept reading the book, ignoring the fact that I didn't know what this word was. It just kept cropping up every so often. I'm like, oh, whatever, I don't know what that is. It's a walking stick, right? So you can see in this chapter, this is, you know, I think maybe it's been mentioned once before, this ash plant. Stephen's got a walking stick. I'm not saying that it's because he's, you know, needs one for any, you know, physical reason. It could have been, I guess, just the, you know, the fashion of the time to have a cane or a walking stick, but that's what an ash plant is. So, you know, I think on this book club we shouldn't, you know, we should be honest when we don't understand stuff. And that's something I didn't get, and now I do. And you know, so there you go. Thought I would share that with you. One thing interesting theme-wise in this book is I feel like Stephen feels it's quite existentialist when he's writing, when he's walking, you know, down the beach. Yeah, he sees 2 midwives, you know, and he imagines that one of them's got a really big bag, and he's imagining what's in the bag, and he thinks, I wonder if it's a dead fetus, and then he thinks about the umbilical cord of the fetus, and then his thoughts go along to like Adam and Eve, and like the fact that Eve had no navel cord, and all of this stuff. It's all rambling thoughts. Like, I'm not sure whether you think like that, but I certainly do. My thoughts go, so I can really identify with this guy here. And yeah, he thinks about his existence, and he thinks about, you know, like, you know, the very beginning of time, and big stuff, you know. So he's walking down this beach, and he's thinking about, you know, small stuff and big stuff, you know. Next minute he's saying, am I going to my Aunt Sarah's, you know, and he's thinking about that. And this is an interesting thing, which is quite confusing. There's a whole imaginary conversation that goes on in the middle of this, and it's all in Stephen's head. So he's going like, oh, I wonder if I should come off the beach and go and see my Aunt Sarah. And then he's like, oh no, like, what would my dad say? And then on goes this imaginary conversation between him and his dad and his auntie and his family. And yeah, so it's no wonder that people lose a grip on this. But like, try and, read through it. If you want, look at the notes if you're really determined to hang on and know what is actually going on. But one of the members of the book club, I think it's Mike, he put a post up the other day and he was saying, like, Ulysses is like falling down a rabbit hole. And it is, and you've just got to surrender to it. It's like a trip. Just ride it, don't worry. It's not about understanding every word. It's not even about understanding every sentence or even every paragraph. Sometimes you have to let it wash over you, and then at the end of the chapter you realize some of it has sunk in, and that's enough in a way. And I think death is also like a big theme in this chapter. Of course, you got the dead dog that's lied, its bloated carcass is lying on the bladderwrack, which is the seaweed. And Stephen sees it, and then he notices a live dog, come and sniff the carcass of the dead corpse. And it's kind of like the land of the living meets the land of the dead, and the idea that life goes on despite, death happening. And I think that there's something in that between what Stephen feels for his mum, because I think he's still not got over his mum really dying. He's obviously thinking in his thoughts, he refers to, he's thinking about Buck Mulligan and what Buck said about it was his fault that his mum died because he didn't pray for her at a bedside. So that idea of, being surrounded by death, walking on the beach, lots of things washed up, there's the bloated carcass of the dog. He imagines the dead fetus in the bag of the midwife. He's obviously tormented, Stephen, I think, in this chapter. And it's beautiful because this chapter, there's nothing goes on, there's no narrative, there's no plot, there's no engagement with anyone else. This is just pure Stephen Dedalus and his thoughts. And it's great. And I think when you read this chapter and read his thoughts, it makes you realise more stuff about yourself. And of course, it's got one of the best endings to a chapter ever. When Stephen picks his nose and leaves a grolly on a rock. My handkerchief, he threw it, I remember. Did I not take it up? His hand groped vainly in his pockets. No, I didn't. Better buy one. He laid the dry snot, picked from his nostril, on a ledge of rock carefully. For the rest, let look who will. Behind, perhaps there is someone. He turned his face over a shoulder, rear, regardant, moving through the air high spars of a three-master, her sails brailed up on the cross trees, homing, upstream, silently moving, a silent ship. The poetry of Joyce. I hope you're enjoying it as much as I am. See you next time for chapter 4.